welcome to SEC Stuff. I'm Sierra alongside Emma, and today we're going to be talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks. Finished 9-4 last season, and there's just lots of hype around this team. Emma, what do you like about South Carolina this year?
LaNorris Sellers and Shane Beamer. This is just such a dynamic combination. There is so much excitement about this team in the Shane Beamer era, especially after how they ended last year. I mean, they were on playoff bubble watch for a very long time once they got hot. And I think if they were allotted the chance to make the playoffs last year, they really could have done something special there. I think they found their rhythm at the right time. Granted, they lost too many games to get there at the end of the day. But I hope they get there this year. This is such an exciting team. So, what do you think about them?
Yeah, I like both of those characters as well. It's funny hearing, I was listening to SEC radio, listening to Shane Beamer speak at SEC Media Days. And, he was actually born in South Carolina, and his dad was a college football coach at Virginia Tech, but had other stops as well and moved around. And when he got back to South Carolina, he's like, this is a place that can absolutely thrive in college football. And they'll be in that Netflix series that's coming out soon as well. And he was like, well, we need to just encourage this brand because he's very self-aware. He's like, we're not Alabama, we're not Georgia, we're not Texas, but we have the opportunity to get there. Beautiful campus, beautiful stadium, passionate fans. And I think those fans deserve a good team this year. And like you said, at the end of the year, South Carolina really got hot, beating Clemson and just showing those flashes of greatness, which was extremely impressive from a young quarterback like LaNorris Sellers, who's a South Carolina native. He reportedly was offered other opportunities via the NIL transfer portal to go somewhere else, but he stayed at South Carolina because that is, I think that's the best way to, especially if you're kind of like a DJ Lagway situation, right? You have the keys to the kingdom. You are the guy. And why would you go somewhere else if everyone is so high on you? And so I think that is going to be really exciting to see. Now, with South Carolina last year, they did have some close games like LSU and even Clemson was.
Yeah.
Yes, though they had some very close ones, and those are mistakes that they needed to eliminate, I believe. But one thing I'm curious to see is how they replace their running game. Rocket Sanders was a star running back for them last year, and I'm curious to see how they replace that. Also, that South Carolina defense was also extremely impressive. They lost their sack leader, Kyle Kennard, and I'm interested to see how this defense also holds up in this conference.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying earlier, I think a lot of people are high on this school and all the sports that they have. Obviously, they have that very dynamic women's basketball team. Football is on the rise. Also, I don't know if anybody listening watches Big Brother, but there is a Gamecocks podcaster who is on the show right now who is also preaching the Gamecocks word all over the Big Brother house. So I think this is such a fun team that people are really latching onto. With LaNorris Sellers, he is on Heisman watch at this moment in time. Granted, not a single game has been played, so who actually knows? But people are really excited about this kid, especially with how good he was at the back end of that season last year. And of course, like you were saying, it was just small mistakes that really cost them their chance to be in the playoffs. And I do think this year we are going to see 4 SEC teams in the playoffs. I don't know how the committee is going to change how they decide who gets in, but I think the SEC, like you said in the previous episode, has leveled up so much that we are just going to see amazing things happen from this conference in the playoffs. But a big question for me is that offensive line. PFF ranked South Carolina's offensive line 100th in 2024 and 115th in 2023. So are they going to be better? Are they going to enable LaNorris Sellers and whoever their new star running back is going to be to really unlock this offense and put points on the board and make sure you keep him safe? There is reason to believe that there is improvement. The unit absolutely played better by the end of 2024. While Simpkins has now graduated, earned all SEC honors at guard, Thompson was still named freshman All-American despite his grade. So they do have good people there. And if they can just continue to grow and continue to protect LaNorris, I think this could be a very dynamic and exciting offense to watch.
And the South Carolina team, like you said, made a case to make it to the college football playoff. I remember just listening to Shane Beamer on various radio shows, making his case for his team, saying, hey, like, this is why we should be in the college football playoff. And he had lots of valid points, but it was those close games that South Carolina dropped. And they were going to be like 4 or 5 plays away from winning certain games. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the trenches, like you mentioned, and protecting LaNorris Sellers. Beamer himself said that he had to play Superman a lot of the time, trying to get him out of certain situations that he was in trouble for. And I think Sellers was in those tough situations because of the offensive line and their lack of productivity during that time. So that is something I hope that they improve on as well in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, the raw tools are there. There is no question about that. Sellers, Stewart, Harbor, they are game changers across the board, but they need to show that they can win in the trenches and handle adversity and stay consistent week to week because that's where they really faltered. So even if one of these stars takes the leap, I mean, South Carolina is going to be a serious threat in the SEC with everyone they play, and they don't have an easy schedule here. They have one of the toughest schedules in the country. The SP gives South Carolina a 7.2 win average. I think that's mean. But then you do look at who they're facing, and they're facing Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Missouri, Clemson, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. I mean, these are not easy teams to beat week in and week out. It is a hard road for them. So, what is their ceiling? We're going to find out. But it is such an exciting team to watch. And I think Shane Beamer is building something very special.
Yes, and I just love the passion that Coach Beamer has for the South Carolina team. Like I said earlier, he was born in that state and he's a son of a college football coach. And it's just passion to just like he just breathes it. And that's the type of coach that these players want to play for. And I think that that's going to help with recruiting as well if this team makes it to the college football playoff. And they're set to finish sixth in the conference standings. And can a sixth ranked team in the SEC get into the college football playoff? I have no idea, just because, again, how tough this conference is and how much they cannibalize themselves. But they start off the season against Virginia Tech in Atlanta. And I think that'll be a fun game. I think South Carolina will get that one.
I agree. I'm just South Carolina's athleticism across the board. They are going to win this game. So then we move on to South Carolina State. I think this is another win. Again, another tune-up game, get right game. Moving into Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a very interesting team just because of Diego Pavia, who really shook up the SEC last year. And they do return a lot of production, but they do lack that SEC level talent to battle every single week. You can pull off an upset, but I just don't see it here. What about you?
I think South Carolina gets this one. Night game at home. And yes, lots of talk with Diego Pavia, but I really think this is a game that South Carolina has to win, and they have the weapons to do it. Just the overall athletes, LaNorris Sellers, I think, will continue to get confident each and every game.
Yeah, and then we go to Missouri. If you watched the OU episode, we talked about we're not as high on Missouri as other people are. They do have a very easy schedule, but I think this is going to be a very difficult game for Missouri to win. And even though it is a home game for them, so I am going to call this a win for South Carolina.
Yeah, I got this for South Carolina as well. Just yeah, Mizzou doesn't have the most crazy tough road environment, in my opinion. I hope no Mizzou fans watch this because they're going to come to my house and hate me. But I think it's another game for South Carolina to really prove that they are that team and they beat the teams that they're supposed to. And after this, they play at Kentucky, or rather at home against Kentucky. Not so much hype on Kentucky this year, but again, it's the SEC. Anything can happen. I mean, they upset Ole Miss last year, and it's just another one of those games that they have to win.
Yeah, I agree. This is a must-win game. Kentucky, who knows, week to week, they have pulled off upsets like last year. So you never want to underestimate any team in the SEC. But I think, again, this is going to be a win for South Carolina, moving them into a bye week when they have a very, very tough stretch ahead of them starting October 11th at LSU in Death Valley. It is just a nightmare. And I think LSU's team is going to be so, so good this year. Best team under Brian Kelly. So I am calling this one a loss.
I have South Carolina upsetting LSU here. I think this is where we actually see that, oh, South Carolina is the real deal. They're not just a team who beats the teams that they're supposed to beat. They beat the teams that everyone is saying is better than them. And I saw how close they played them last year. And yes, of course, like they're losing some of those stars like Rocket Sanders, their running back and whatnot from South Carolina. But that's why you rebuild and reload every single year. And I think that the work that LaNorris Sellers can do on with his legs is really going to show against LSU because their defense ain't the greatest, whatever, could leave it as. Their defense is not the greatest, and that's something that I think South Carolina can take advantage of with their offense and how it continues to improve each year.
Yeah, absolutely. If they do beat LSU, that'll be absolutely amazing for them because of how hard this back stretch is. That would be a win that would put them in the right mindset moving forward. And then we would go to Oklahoma. Are we playing Oklahoma next at home? I'm calling this a win for South Carolina. I know Venables has a very tough defense, but I just think South Carolina's offense is going to overpower them here.
Yeah, I agree. South Carolina's offense and their defense, I think that they're going to continue to improve their Oklahoma got a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback there, but can they do it against teams with strong defenses like South Carolina? I'm not really sure. And it's at home, early game. I think South Carolina takes this one. After this, then it's homecoming against Alabama. And no better way to ruin your homecoming than a loss. But I think that South Carolina drops against Alabama here.
Yeah, this is going to be a loss for South Carolina. Alabama is going to be a very dynamic team next year. One would hope for Kalen DeBoer and his job there. But I think Alabama with Ty Simpson at the helm, what the defense is looking like under Kane Womack, all of the offensive weapons they have, it's just going to be too much for South Carolina at this point. So it will be a sad homecoming for them, but maybe don't schedule Alabama as your homecoming? Question mark. But I do think this is going to be a loss for South Carolina. And then we're going to move to going to Ole Miss against Lane Kiffin. And I just think Lane Kiffin's offense will stress out South Carolina's defense. So I'm going to call this a loss for South Carolina as well. So I just put a bunch of losses in a row.
No, I was going to have Ole Miss as a win for the Rebels as well because I think that if they lose to Alabama, it might be a bit of a hangover loss.
Especially
And
like, oh.
yeah, exactly. And so that one is in Oxford, and Ole Miss beat South Carolina pretty convincingly last year in Columbia, but that was with Jackson Dart, whole different team there. Ole Miss reloaded in the transfer portal, bunch of new weapons, new quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But I'm just really high on the Rebels this year, and I think that this will be another loss for South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm calling that their third loss of the year. And then we go into a bye week. We're going at Texas A&M. I am calling this a win for South Carolina. I think A&M's in a little bit of a flux. As South Carolina is more stable, they are hungry and they would need this win, especially after all those losses I just talked about.
Yes, and I think that South Carolina also wins at Kyle Field against Texas A&M, and there's still questions about Marcel Reed on if he's the guy for A&M. And South Carolina, I feel like, is a little bit more confident heading into the season, or maybe Texas A&M might be gatekeeping a little more, not telling us anything. We don't know, but I see that South Carolina bounces back and gets this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, we're going to play Coastal Carolina. This is just get right game, rest some of your starters, get ready for rivalry weekend. So I would assume we're both calling this a win here before playing Clemson at home. I think I trust South Carolina's offense more than I trust Clemson's offense under Cade Klubnik. So I am going to call this a win. They're going to win against Clemson in their rivalry game, final game of the regular season.
I have South Carolina winning this one too, because last year when they beat them at the fake Death Valley,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
here's the thing. If Clemson beats LSU, I will call them the real Death Valley for at least a year.
Yes, absolutely. And I think at the end of last year when we saw South Carolina beat Clemson, it's like, okay, they're not making the playoff this year, but this is one of those teams to watch.
Yeah.
And, it's always a rivalry, South Carolina, Clemson in state, but Clemson has had the upper hand for the past few years. And now I love when rivalries are very kind of like even sided, like it could
Yeah.
swing either way. Rivalries aren't fun when one team is consistently winning because then it's not a
Unless it's your
rivalry.
team.
Yeah. And so I think that this could be a South Carolina game, and it shows and it makes it more intense, and also a reason to prove that the SEC is better than the ACC.
Always, especially after last year, them getting 2 spots and us not getting 4, dot, 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 dot.
Yeah.
But I am ending their season at 9-3, which could potentially make the playoffs, depending on how they rank teams this year. We still have no idea, and we won't know until November 1st.
Yeah, which is crazy. And so I have them at 10-2 because of that upset over LSU. Well, who knows? It's technically an upset. They could be ranked whatever by that time. We don't know. But as of now, it's an upset. And I think that 10-2 is where South Carolina ends up. And I think that that makes a case of going to the college football play. I think a 10-2 team makes it to the college football playoff.
Absolutely. I think any 10-2 team, especially with how hard South Carolina's schedule is, makes it to the college football playoffs. I think a 9-3 win record with how hard their schedule is should make it to the college football playoffs. Will it? I don't know. It'll depend who their losses are to, how close they were, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we saw Clemson get in there the back way by winning their conference championship. I don't think SEC teams have that luxury of losing that many games and making it to the championship to even get the back way into the playoffs. So it'll be very interesting to see if they lose 3 games, can they still make the playoffs with how difficult their schedule is? But if they win 10, then they're in easily.
Absolutely. And we always like to see more SEC teams in the playoff just to show how challenging this conference is. And it's why they don't need to play 9 conference games compared to the Big Ten. But, they'll let someone like Indiana in who beats Purdue and thinks that they're the national champions. So
Well,
we'll
only loss on their record was to a winning record team, and all the other ones had losing records. So whatever.
definitely.
Grievances, grievances, grievances.
Exactly. And we'll have plenty of discourse of that, I'm sure, throughout the season. But
Definitely.
that'll wrap it up for us here on SEC Stuff. And thanks for joining us. Let us know in the comments on how you think the Gamecocks are going to do this year. We'll see you next time.